up, guys? How you doing today? So today I want to show you guys how to make pound cake. Not just any pound cake, but with my spin on it. We're going to make Funfetti miniature pound cakes. Here's the ingredients. I have butter, eggs, vanilla sugar, sour cream, vanilla, white distilled vinegar, sprinkles, and flour. Onto my tools, ice cream scooper, Crisco. I have a spatula, my wooden toothpick, my liners, and the wonderful miniature loaf pan. So now, let's make these cakes. The step for my Funfetti pound cakes is to soften my butter. Now that my butter has been softened for a little bit, I want to add in my sugar. I don't know if you can see it well, but you see some little specks in here? That's vanilla beans. I took the time to make me some vanilla sugar. All vanilla sugar is your regular granulated sugar, and you take some used vanilla beans and you take the pods, you put it in the sugar, and you let it sit for about a month, and then you start smelling the aroma. You get a few specks that flake off in the sugar, and it's like caviar of sugar. I love it because I'm a vanilla connoisseur. I love any type of vanilla in anything, and I think it just kind of enhances the flavor when you're doing something that's, you know, kind of basic, and it just gives it added flavor. So if we will, let's look back at the butter and sugar mixture that I have cream in here. I got a few pods of vanilla that I'll get out in a second. But you can see how the sugar is starting to cream and it's starting to become fluffy. The thing you want to worry about when you're making these mixers, when you're using the mixers, you don't want the sugar to become, and the butter and the sugar to become hot. Then it starts to melt. So you want to kind of keep your eye on it, gauge it, make sure the sugar's not separating. Don't have the mixer up too high, because when you do, then you start to get clarified butter, and that's not good when you're baking. So we're just going to let this mix for a little bit longer, get it a little fluffier. And then the next thing we're going to add in is the sour cream. I like to use something that has some fat, but not really big on the additive of the flavor, because I want to flavor it myself. So I like to use sour cream. I found that sour cream, buttermilk, cream cheese makes it moist, fluffy, tender, because things that are fatteners or tenderizers, and it makes your baked goods last just a little bit longer. So whenever you add something into your mixer, make sure you turn it off. So now I'm going to add in my sour cream. And just to let you guys know what I've already used, I have 2 cups of my vanilla sugar. I have a stick and a half of unsalted butter, and I used 8 ounces of sour cream. Now that that's all nice and creamy, come and take a look with me. It's creamy, it's fluffy. Now I get to add in my eggs. I have 4 large eggs. Now with the eggs, you want to make sure that you let them sit out to room temperature, because they emulsify better. When your eggs are cold, they tend to seize up, and so you won't get the true fluffiness that you would get from adding the egg into a baked good. So I'm just going to put it on my lowest setting, and slowly I'm going to add in 1 egg at a time until it incorporates and emulsifies. Take your time with this process. Baking is something that's relaxing. It soothes your soul after a long week. Bake you something nice and sweet. Kick your feet up. There's no rush when you're baking. Well, at least for me. I like to take my time, make sure I cover everything, and I do it right. So now that my egg has incorporated, I'm going just to scrape the bottom. Like I said earlier, you want to make sure you scrape the bottom, the sides, so that way there's no residual stuff that's caked up, that hasn't gotten incorporated. Because once you add your flour in, you're going to fold it in, and you don't want to mix too much, because you don't want to build the gluten in the flour. And I'll get to that part when we add in the flour. So I got 2 more eggs left to mix. I know it's kind of tedious, but like I said, you don't want to skip or rush on this step, because you really want to have the opportunity to develop that nice fluffiness that you get from your butter, your sugar, your eggs, your sour cream. You want to get all that. These eggs are fighting. Tricky. Okay, I got it. We got 1 more egg left to add. See, it's nice, it's fluffy. The butter hasn't separated, it hasn't gotten hot, it's still nice and cold. And I always tell people, when you're using a stand mixer and you're not familiar with it, take your time. Do it on the lowest setting. You don't have to blast it all the way up to the highest setting or on medium, because it's not a rush. The time, the quality that you put into your baked goods, it's gonna pay off in the end, because you'll love it. You'll get something that's tender, flavorful, moist, something that you can be proud of. So all my eggs are added in, the butter's added in, the sour cream is added in, the sugar's in here. I'm gonna add in vanilla. I know I used vanilla sugar, but I also like to add in the extract because I'm not doing a chocolate cake, a red velvet, it's not a lemon cake, so I still wanted to have some sort of flavor. So I'm gonna add in my 2 teaspoons of vanilla, and I'm also gonna add in my vinegar. The reason why I used the vinegar, because I found an experiment with baking that I needed something else that made it tender, that made it moist, and just gave it that I can't explain it, but that it doesn't make it dense, it doesn't make it fluffy, but it makes it last a little longer. It's moister. You can see the moisture when you go to press down on the cake. So I like to use vinegar. So here's my vinegar. I'm gonna mix that up for a little bit. I added 2 teaspoons of vinegar, just so you know. You just want to mix it until it's incorporated. As soon as it becomes incorporated, you can turn it off. Now on to the fun part, where, oops, made a little mess. Now on to the fun part that I like to say is adding your flour. When you add your flour, you're gonna have to remove it. I don't like to tell people to mix in the flour because I feel like people tend to over mix the flour. You just gotta do it until the flour is nicely incorporated. It's not about the lumps. It's not about how smooth it is. You just want it nicely incorporated. Make sure you always sift your flour, baking soda, and salt. That's what's in this mixture. It's my flour mixture. I added 2 cups of flour, 1½ teaspoons of baking powder, and I have ½ teaspoon of salt. So you always want to sift those together. Don't worry about sifting your sugar because it's a moisturizer, so it doesn't make a difference with that. So you want to slowly add in your flour. It's not a race, like I said. I tend to do it in about 3 parts, and when I do it, I just put a little in, I put it down, and I fold. All you want to do is just gently fold. I know it seems like it's going to take forever, but trust me, it will pay off in the end. It's no rush. You fold it, you bring all the flour and your wet batter to the same consistency. Nice deep folds. You don't want to mix because then you start developing that unwanted gluten that makes things tough. It makes it dense. Just doesn't make it really enjoyable. I found this one to be hard for me. It took me going to culinary school, taking a baking and pastry class to really understand the science of baking and to understand why do you do certain things. Why is it okay to do this? Why is it not okay? You know, how does flour really work? And I found that when I'm baking sweet goods and whatever it is, a cake, a cupcake, pound cakes, I like to use cake flour, pastry flour, because it's more tender and it doesn't have as much gluten in it naturally. So I say, why not? Spend a few extra bucks and you can use some pretty good flour for your product because we always want to have a nice product at the end. So I say, why not? But like I said, it took a class for me to really understand and to have a respect for bakers and pastry because I just figured a cake is a cake. You take it out the box, you mix it, you throw it in the oven. But once you start making cakes and pies, it's a whole nother feeling. So this is what your batter's starting to look like. I don't know if you can see. It's fluffy. It's not separated. You do have some lumps still, which is okay, like I said, because they'll bake out. Now on the last, I just want to sprinkle in the sprinkles. Hey, I like that. Sprinkle in the sprinkles. I just like to put in as much as I want. You can do this at your own aggression. I like a lot of sprinkles. So now that I got my last bit of flour, I got my sprinkles in. Now it's starting to look like a Funfetti pound cakes. This is a workout. All this folding and who needs the gym when you can just bake all day? I'm gonna go on an all cake diet for a month and see how much muscle I gain. All right. So now the bottom is almost there. All right. I am good to go. So now on to the next step. I'm going to finish filling my mini loaf pans with my batter. Now, you want to bake this at 325. And normally, if it was a whole pound cake, you would bake it you would bake it for 25 minutes. But since it's not a whole pound cake, they're little mini loaves, you are going to bake this for about 15 to 18 minutes. Did I tell you this is kind of messy too? I don't know if I told you that. And yeah, so you're going to bake it for 15 to 18 minutes. And when I normally bake my pound cake, I like to put a oven-proof pan in the oven with water because it adds extra moisture, extra steam, and it just makes for a moisture cake. So at that end, when I preheat my oven to 325, always remember to preheat your oven. You never want to put it in there when it's cold because it's overcooking and it just makes a big mess. So preheat your oven before you get started on mixing your stuff and add that pan of water in there to get the steam, to get everything that you need. And when you're done, your loaves should look like this and they should be ready for the oven. So I'm going to put these in the oven and I'll see you guys when my cakes are finished. Now I'm going to show you guys how to make the glaze for your miniature Funfetti pound cakes. I have in here 1 cup of powdered sugar. You always want to sift powdered sugar because powdered sugar is sugar incorporated with cornstarch. So you want to sift it so that way it gets all nice and fluffy. Fluffy, 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 fluffy. Sifting, sifting, sifting. Just keep sifting. Sifting, sifting, sifting. Now with the glaze, you kind of add the ingredients at your own discretion, how thick you want your glaze to be, what flavor you want. So in my glaze, I got some milk, I have some vanilla extract, and I'm going to put my spin on it, and I'm going to color my glaze. I'm going to use some blue food coloring or food gel. I like the color blue because I think it looks good with baked goods. It's bright, it's vibrant, it's summertimey, and I'm in California and it's summertimey still. So that's what I'm going to do. But you can use any color. It doesn't matter. Whatever your favorite color is, whatever color you have on hand. I found that, though, the food coloring gels work the best. You don't have to use as much. You just mix them right in. It's not as messy. A little more expensive, but I think it gives a better color. And it just makes an overall better product. So I always tell people when you're using it, use gel. If you can, they have them. You can find them in Walmart. They have a nice baking section. Michael's has a nice baking section. Or just any store that you go to get your baking goods. So I have a few little lumps and crumbs left over. And, alright, now we're good. I'm going to toss this over in my sink. Now that I have my 1 cup of powdered sugar in my bowl, I'm going to add just a splash, not too much of vanilla extract. There's my splash. Then I'm going to add in just a little bit of the food coloring, not too much because like I said, it's a gel. I don't know if you guys can really see it, but it's kind of like a hair gel. Just add a little bit of that. Now this is kind of tricky to get off. I really don't like using my fingers because I'll have blue dye on my fingers for a very long time and it drives me crazy. Now I'm going to add in my milk. Add your milk in a little bit at a time. It's not a rush. Just add in a little bit until you start getting it mixed up to the consistency that you like. Just keep mixing. See how pretty and blue it gets. Now remember it's a glaze, so it's not going to be thick. It's going to be thin because you're just going to drizzle it over. Then I'm going to put a little decorative. Oh, what is that? That is my cakes. My cakes are ready. I forgot to tell you guys about one ingredient. I add a little fresh lemon juice in my glaze. It cuts the sweetness of the powdered sugar. It gives it a more rounded flavor. And I like the little bit of hint of lemon that you get in there. So I'm going to squeeze just a little bit of lemon juice in there. And that's it. So I finished my miniature Funfetti pound cakes. I've glazed them. I've decorated them. Like I said, I added a decorative touch to my glaze. I added food gel to it, food coloring. so that way I can get a nice pretty color. They're great for picnics, school functions, work functions, something nice to have around to snack on. So thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you next time in the kitchen.